I have it on good authority that this is in fact a trap, but we've got to close out the original Star Wars trilogy and see how Luke Skywalker finally takes on Darth Vader. There's a new Death Star, a new lightsaber, and some divisive new friends in Return of the Jedi. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tara.
Guten Tag.
I still don't understand why you dropped your intro catchphrase just randomly 180 episodes in. It's kind of weird.
I was ready to drop it after episode 2.
Now
I'm taking charge. I'm doing what I want, alright? I'm my own woman now.
No one was forcing you to do it in episode 3.
Yeah.
But once you did it 3 times, it's like, okay, now it's expected. Now it's a pattern.
Yeah.
And then after 187 episodes, you just suddenly decided, I'm not going to say my thing anymore.
No, I feel loose, you know? Feel free and I can say anything. And, Guten Tag felt like the right response this week.
Quiet down. Alright, welcome everyone. This is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. We talk about science fiction films, and we are rounding out a classic trilogy. We are doing Return of the Jedi, which is the third and sadly not final Star Wars movie today. We'll start spoiler-free, of course. There's many more Star Wars to get to. That will happen on the Ace, but it'll happen after Tara has departed. But it felt right to at least finish this initial trilogy with Tara, since she talked about Star Wars and Empire. Then we had to round out with Jedi, so it just made sense. So we'll get into it and all that. So, yeah. I feel like when we do movies as big as this, it feels weird to even give a synopsis. But yeah, Han's frozen in carbonite. The gang have to band together and go rescue him. And then the Empire are building a new Death Star. They have to take care of that. That's the plot.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best I got for you. So, I guess we'll get into it. We'll start waxing lyrically about light beams and blasters and fuzzballs.
Okay.
And mistaken incest. All right, Tara, what did you think of Return of the Jedi?
Case. I love Return of the Jedi. I have a controversial take, maybe.
Oh.
I like it just as much as Empire. I've always liked this one. I think my earliest memories of Star Wars is this film. I think because the opening Jabba's palace scene is so strong, and you get so many cool aliens and puppetry, and Luke shows up and he's a badass, and he's got this cool new saber, and it's green, which is the best color in general, but also the best color for a lightsaber. I think the movie does a really solid job of rounding out this trilogy. The characters all get a good amount of time. So although it's mostly Luke's story, we do get a nice story arc for both Leia and Han, and even the droids have stuff to do. I don't know. I think this one is, yeah, it's got Ewoks. I like Ewoks. I think they're cute. And I think that I don't mind that there's a second Death Star. I think they do a good job of bookending the trilogy for Luke's journey, and I think it's cool that it takes place on the thing that he defeated in the first film, but he has to do it again, and it's harder this time. I don't know. I love it.
Okay. I guess saying you like Return as much as Empire is controversial to some. I'm not that fussed. I do think Empire, I mean, I think it's, first one's the best, then Empire, then Jedi. And I still think this is a really solid movie, though. It definitely has what I'll say are the first cracks of the foundation falling apart, but not as much as that it affects this movie. But you can see some things that were going to be bigger problems and later, down the line, prequels and stuff like that.
It does. Well, it does have the most egregious special additions to it.
Oh yeah, I'm not even talking about that. But that, yeah, we'll talk about that. But I'm not even referring to that. I'm like, the Ewoks are kind of, you know, they are shit. That's just like, I'm just gonna, and it's not that.
Why?
I believe my sentence was continuing. You were about to get that answer. You were about to get the answer you seek.
Look at you slowing everything down again while you have to formulate your thoughts about what kind of an argument you have against the Ewoks.
Well, first and foremost, I do think the pacing grounds to a halt when we have to do their whole little village and it feels like everything calms down and so on. So I think it's a bit of that. But yeah, they're also just a little bit cutesy. They're a little bit too kiddie, I guess. And I think that's something that, you know, Star Wars as a whole would veer even more into further down the line. Which, and also, like, this one has, I think, a lower budget than the last couple, which is not to the detriment of a lot of it, because it still has a lot of great puppetry, a lot of great animatronics. Like you said, the Jabba Palace stuff near the start is full of just these kooky little ideas all over the place, which is all really great stuff. Although, you called it a scene, and I understand why you do that, because I think in my memory, I often misinterpret, like, or remember how much of that is actually the movie. But by the time that section's done, by the time you've got to the Sarlacc pit, you're like over 30 minutes into the movie. Like, it's not a scene.
Yeah, it's like an act.
It's like a whole like little short story that has its own. I always forget how long that stuff actually takes at the start of the movie.
There's a lot that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that stuff's really solid. I think the main story between Luke and Darth Vader is really solid. For me, it's just like, it does kind of feel like we're going to set half the movie on a planet that's a forest, because that saves a lot of money, because it's at least one big chunk we don't have to build sets for by and large, because it's just trees and shit. So you can feel a little bit of that creeping in there, and
that looks good. Like so many cheap movies that I've watched that take place in forests, like, they're not shot well, and like, I think it's hard to actually shoot a scene in a forest. I've heard from like a podcast that I listened to, a couple of people talk about Star Trek, and they are both cameramen, and they've brought that up before. Like, shooting in a forest is difficult because you have so much shade and light in the same spot, because light's coming through the leaves and stuff, that it's very difficult to make it look good. And I don't see that here, and I see that in cheap films.
Yeah, well, what I said and what you said don't contradict each other. Like they can still save money, but because they've got talented people shooting it properly, it can still look good. My complaint isn't that it doesn't look good.
Okay.
I'm just pointing out that the choice to set it on a planet that looks a lot like just, you know, typical forest and jungle is a cost saving measure.
Yeah, but that's the way the planets are set up in this universe. Like, there's also a desert planet, and there's a snow planet, and now we have a forest planet. Like, it doesn't seem out of the ordinary to have a forest planet in this, although technically a moon.
Oh, I'm not saying it does seem out of the ordinary to have it. I'm just saying we spend a lot of time down there. We spend a lot of time, like, I think once they go down about halfway through the movie, when they set up kind of what the rest of the story is going to be and what the mission is and what we're all going to be trying to do. Like, there is kind of a moment every time I watch this movie where I think to myself, oh yeah, they're just going to be down here now for the rest of the movie. Like, that's it. Like, this isn't just like we're setting this up before they do the big mission in the third act. We're going down here effectively at the start of Act 2, and we're going to be down here for the rest of the movie. It's not a big deal. Like, I don't want to make it sound like it's a big deal. I feel like I'm having to defend it though, because you keep trying to fight me on it.
Well, yeah, it's just odd. I don't know. I thought it was odd because clearly the movie has very big sets in it, and they could have made a movie just that took place on the Death Star in the third act if they wanted to, but like, because they already had those sets built, not from the first movie. I mean, like, we see, you know, so many set pieces on the Death Star in this film.
Yeah, I'm not arguing. Like, I'm saying they were smart with their money. They had a smaller budget. They spent it in the correct places for the moments where they needed the big sets, and by having so much time in the forest for these big chunks, it meant they could afford to do all the sets they wanted to do for the other bits. That's literally what I'm saying. I'm not disparaging. I'm not saying the sets in the other parts of the movie look any worse than the previous two movies. They don't. They look great. Like, okay. It's just about it's about just putting the money where it needs to go, and they made sure enough of it didn't need as much, so they could spend it on those other parts. I guess
I just misinterpreted what you said, what you meant by cheap, by the movie looking cheaper.
I didn't say it looked cheaper. I didn't say it looked cheaper. I said they had a lower budget. So I did not say it looked cheap. I said you could.
All right. Well, that's what I heard, but I must have heard it because that's how I interpreted it, not because that's what you said.
Just to clarify, the movie does not look cheap. There's just
I was very confused by that.
There is just some costs you could. I'm saying if you think about how they've arranged these scenes and what they're choosing to do, where you can see how they're saving some money.
It's very smartly arranged. Yes.
Jesus Christ. Kind of like how Oppenheimer, apparently, it's another example. Nolan cut like 20 days of shooting so they could afford to build the town he wanted. Like, you know, the town in the desert. Like, he cut like 20 days of shooting so he could afford it. They didn't just give him more money. People assume they'll just throw money at him. Like, that's just a guess. He's making a decision. He's saying, okay, I'm going to accept I have less time to do it, so I have money to have these sets up to the standard that I want to. I'm saying something similar here. Like, they clearly made some choices here to distribute the money where it needed to go, and as a result, we spend a reasonable amount of the movie in the jungle, or the forest, or whatever. So, that's it. That was meant to be a throwaway sentence, and it turned into a 5-minute debate.
Yeah. You should really, like, be better at communicating if you're going to have a podcast.
Oh, it's my communication that's the problem, is it?
Yep.
Okay, I'll phrase it another way. By being on the forest as much as they are, the movie feels a little smaller in scope compared to Empire.
Okay.
Okay, we're okay with that sentence. Feels a bit smaller in scope.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we still go to as many places, but maybe not.
I don't think we do, and I think, well, unless you count the special editions where they add in like CG shots of all these other cities near the end, which, you know, fail. There's Jar Jars. You can see Jar Jars. I mean, they're very small in the frame, but you can see them.
Yeah, we see Naboo.
It's terrible. Yeah, honestly, like, there's a whole bit in the Jabba's palace stuff early on where it's like the first like 10-15 minutes of the movie just feel great, even watching this version, and then you get to a part where like he's got like a performance where there's a singer and the singer's just CG, and I've never seen the original version, so I don't know if this CG has replaced someone else or if this part just wasn't in the original cut.
Yeah, but not the song. The song is new. But there was like a band playing, and they had like performers, I believe. But then,
well, yeah, I mean they're there the whole time. But I'm saying this actual scene where they have a song. They did replace
other entertainers. Yeah, I'm fairly sure. Because I watched like all the special edition behind the scenes stuff that I could.
No, but what I'm saying is was this scene where they focus on someone singing a song in the original cut and they've just pasted over them with CG, or is this particular couple minutes where there's someone singing actually, like, in the same way that the scene with Jabba and A New Hope is, like, it wasn't actually in the cut and they pasted over someone for something they shot, but it wasn't in the original cut? That's what I'm asking.
Thank you for clarifying. Let me explain. I believe the scene is there's a band there that's always been there, and the band did have a lead singer, but George Lucas wasn't satisfied with it and then replaced it with these lead singers, and they gave it a different song, and they added some more things like the bald guys like playing the saxophone or oboe looking instruments, like those were added in. Those scenes were also added in.
Yeah, but the entire scenes of the
were in the original cut. Yes, we're in the original. So the performer was in the original Return of the Jedi, and then he said, "Let's replace them."
That's the answer I was looking for. That part.
Oh my god.
That's all I wanted.
I don't know how that wasn't clear already.
It wasn't clear. I was trying to find out if the person was actually there singing a song in the original cut. That's it.
Oh my god, this review is going to take 3 hours.
Anyway, you cut to this stupid CG character who looks like something that would have maybe been made for like Gremlins 2. And I love Gremlins 2. This is not a knock on Gremlins 2, but it feels like tonally like we're we're going more absurd.
Feels like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that really sticks out. Obviously you get the shots of the other cities at the end, and then I won't get into it too much for spoiler reasons, but let's just say they replace an actor in a prominent moment towards the end, and that is particularly dire. You know, because this is actually something that didn't happen in 1997. This didn't happen until the Blu-rays come out. So I saw the previous version of the first version of these movies I saw were the special editions, but it was before they made that change. Like they've done other little tweaks that are probably more, you know, minor, but that's the big one that everyone sort of like notices and it really sticks out.
It's really in your face, yeah.
Also, the hand shot for stuff in the first movie, I think they've slightly tweaked that every single time that they've altered it. Like they always go back in, and now it's kind of like they shoot at the same time rather than hand shoot second, but he's supposed to shoot first.
He's a scoundrel. Let him be a scoundrel.
Yeah. Not that we need to talk about it again. I'm just bringing it up as another example as something that they've changed almost every, like, DVDs come out, another change. Blu-rays come out, other change, including this actor change at the end of Jedi. And it wouldn't surprise me if when they went to like Disney Plus and like we got like the 4Ks and all that, if they made another round of tweaks.
I'm just waiting for the day that Disney is like, here you go, here's the thing everybody wants, just all the original theatrical cuts, but it's 4K.
It's inevitable it'll happen because at some point they're going to push a panic button when they would just want to like drum up the interest in Star Wars again, and that'll be how they do it. They'll be like, hey, be excited for this new movie because here's the original versions of all the original films, and that'll get people excited again.
It's probably when Lucas dies, right?
I mean, given how I assumed it would happen quickly once they bought Star Wars, the fact that it hasn't until now means that it's probably when he dies.
There's some sort of clause in there. It's like when Prince died, and then all of a sudden his music was in all sorts of movies. It was like immediately in the second Kingsman movie. And you're like, oh, Prince doesn't really allow that.
yeah. I think that's probably what's going to happen. He's getting up there in age. We can't be that far away at this point.
I don't know. He's got a lot of money to keep him alive.
Yeah, but he's, you know, like. He's a nerd. How healthy can he be? that's yeah. I mean, I'm making some morbid jokes. I'm you know, I'm not wishing ill will upon the man. That said, though, when I'm doing the prequels with David down the line, I might be wishing ill will on him when I do that. But I'm not wishing ill will on him now.
They are what they are.
Yeah, I guess we could just go, because honestly, it's hard to talk about movies like this without spoilers because you just kind of expect that everyone knows it well enough that
everything's in the zeitgeist. And I'll say, like, again, this is obviously a very emotional film, and John Williams just kills it with the music, like especially the final stuff at the end is just so good. Yeah, very moving, very epic. Sometimes I would watch while watching the movie, I would think, I wonder if this music wasn't here right now and something else was in there, like how this would play. Like, would it even still be good?
It would definitely be
Sometimes
weaker.
I have those thoughts.
It would definitely be weaker. Like there's a lot of movies that are only okay that probably would be elevated if they had great scores, but they don't, so they kind of stay mediocre. So with this, yeah, maybe the magic of the music does let you get over some of the things that, that's an obvious puppet. It's okay because John Williams is like rubbing your shoulders as as you're looking at it, so you feel okay about it. It's keeping you in the spirit of things, even if you do see something. That said, though, I mean, you know, around spoilers, like what, you know, there's so many like throwaway little moments in the Jabba's palace stuff at the start. When the droids come in, for example, because they're first. There's like a spidery mechanical thing that walks behind them, and you don't even get a good look at it. It's in like silhouette, but you just kind of see this thing walking past them behind them. It's really good.
Yeah, it's really cool.
There's like little gremlin.
3PO gets a little nervous about it too, like, oh.
Yeah, you get like little gremlin things that are laughing. It's kind of like a Muppet. You get you know, just all with various creatures. I love I'll call them the Rocksteadies, the sort of the warthog looking things. It's sort of
They
soldiers.
almost look like they don't belong until you remember the first movie and the cantina scene. Like, oh yeah, the creatures just look like whatever in this film, and it's great.
They do feel a bit more
Fantasy, because they look like
kinda, yeah.
like warthog, like meets like an orc or a troll kind of a thing. I don't know.
They look like something that would be on an episode of Power Rangers, which I guess you could argue that for any of these things, but I think those especially look like something the Power Rangers might fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people were making that comparison when this came out. Although maybe Super Sentai was already a thing in Japan, I don't know. It was around this time period. That was one of those things. There was like 10 seasons of Power Rangers in Japan before it became Power Rangers. So it's interesting stuff.
Go.
Yeah, all this stuff's pretty good. It all looks great. If I have any critiques about this opening like act with the Jabba's Palace stuff, is I do think watching it that is a little bit strange, like how kind of like the droids come, they get taken, and then you don't know it's Leia right away, but then it's like Leia comes in an outfit, she gets taken. Chewie comes in, he's now there. It's almost like this roll call of all the main characters of the previous films are coming in one or two.
But it's a heist, you know.
Yeah. But they don't all know that though, right? Like some of them are kind of.
Well, 3PO doesn't.
Yeah,
but like
3PO
everyone, because they can't trust him to hold a secret.
Yeah, so he's shitting himself.
But then we see Lando there also later on, like he's part of the heist.
Yeah. Again, it's just a minor critique, but it just like as you're watching it, there's just kind of this roll call almost of one by one they come in, and I'm like, okay, can we, like you could have maybe had Chewie already be here held captive or something. It just feels a bit weird that we're doing them one by one, but that's not to say that most of these segments aren't good, or the Luke's entrance when he finally comes in and he's got the silhouette of the door like closing behind him. It feels like a big entrance. It feels like the big guy's here.
I love that door. Even like it's so alien to me. I love it when like it's the opening scene really is the is 3PO walking up with R2 to that door, and the door is massive, and it's built into like the desert mountain, and like he just taps on it barely, and this thing like is alerted, and like an eyeball comes out to talk to him and stuff. So I don't know. I love the size of that door. It just puts me right back into the Star Wars world, you know, that universe so well, even more so than the droids do.
Yeah, well, this is back in Tatooine, so it feels very familiar, you know, and I think that's intentional, much like having a second Death Star later on. Starting off in Tatooine is kind of like, okay, we're bookending with doing a lot of this, like the beats of the first movie again. Even later on, when Han and the crew are like on the little ship, and it's a stolen Empire ship, and they're going through the blockade, and he sort of like calls them and sort of gives them an excuse, and he's like, "This'll work." That's a callback, because in the first movie when they're going towards the Death Star, he tries to bluff on the radio, and it doesn't work. And technically, it doesn't work here, but they think it works because they get let through. Obviously, we see that Darth Vader's like, no, that's rebels. I can sense my son, but let them in because I want to toy with them or something, you know?
Also, he needs his son. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Emperor wants his son.
The Emperor does want his son. Then we see the Emperor, not just through a video call this time, he's there. He's not in the opening scene, but he is mentioned in the opening scene. Darth Vader's like, yes, the Emperor's coming. He's not happy with this Death Star. The construction's taking too long. And I'm like, construction workers keep delaying things. Even the Empire itself is not immune to construction workers slowing down, okay?
Nope.
The Force might be strong, but it can't change that.
And we know they have no regard for safety, because they never install any, like, handrails or anything.
Oh, of course, yeah. Of course. Yeah, so
they're already taking lots of shortcuts, right? So what is this delay about?
So anyway, we have all the Jabba's Palace stuff. We have Leia actually sneaks in. She's the one that actually brings in Chewie. Well, I suppose that kind of. I suppose against what I said before, technically Leia and Chewie come in together, but we just don't know it's her at first. I mean, you do now because you've seen it before, but like.
And before then, you see Luke delivers a message and through like a hologram. So we kind of see Luke first in a way. It's like, I present to you these two droids as a gift.
Yeah, so the R2 message hologram, yeah, that we got in the first movie. Again, it's another callback to the first movie. But Leia melts Han, gets him out of the carbonite, and he can't see anything, right? It's like, it's all right, your eyesight will come back in time, but you're going to be blind for a bit. So he's... Which for most part is used for comedy. It's like him not looking in the right place, or sort of not being able to see Jabba and things like that, and not knowing that it's Leia right away, kind of thing. All those little moments play kind of well. But ultimately, it's when Luke comes in and actually tries to stand up against Jabba. Jabba sends him down to his pit, which is actually the result of the music number, is that one of the slaves tries to get away and Jabba sends them down into the pit. And we don't see what happens, of course, we just hear it. This is actually one of my favorite effects of the movie, is this big monster when Luke goes down there.
Rancor.
There you go, the Rancor. He does look quite good. It's a really old school stop motion prosthetics and stuff like that. It's it feels like an old school monster movie effect.
Yeah. It doesn't make you go like, oh, that's what a monster's supposed to look like. Why can't modern day movies get monsters right?
Because these days they all have to have pincers, they all have to be insect-like, they all they all have to be
they all have to have squiggly doos.
Yeah. Yeah, monster design's really all blended together over the last couple decades.
It really feels like that. Maybe it's something that just we see and no one else does, but it's like everybody in studios everywhere got together and said, there's only one thing that'll scare a modern audience, and it has to have these three things, and that's all we get now.
Ever since Cloverfield.
Yeah.
I feel like Cloverfield was the originator of this, and then ever since then, every monster's been a kind of a variation on that. Unless it's a pre-established monster. Obviously, Godzilla is always like Godzilla and stuff like that, but anything...
But that's why like King of the Monsters was so exciting, because we got those classic monsters that came out that they all look different, you know.
Yeah, but Super 8 had a very Cloverfield style monster.
Yeah, even King Kong, all the stuff on the island, I thought was not very inventive, except for the bamboo spider thing. That's the only thing I liked.
No, it's a fair point. This is where the movie's really cooking to me, and it feels like a lot of the money went into this like opening 30 minutes, because not only do we have this big set and we have all these people in costumes and prosthetics and animatronics and all this stuff, but then obviously we get some fighting as well.
Yeah, we get to see Luke in action like right away, and he's smart. You know, he doesn't have his tools, his lightsaber. He's got to use the Force at some point, and it, you know, ultimately that's what wins the battle. But like, yeah, he's smart when he puts the bone in the mouth and stuff. I remember that as a kid thinking, oh, that's gotta hurt so much.
It's how he even gets in to see Jabba in the first place. He uses the mind trick on the one with the big
Squiggly do?
The big... I was going to say neck, but it's not a neck. It's more like a big flesh ponytail.
He does have like a kind of like a bullfrog neck thing going on too. But yeah, it's got like fleshy giant tubes coming out of his head. But he's not like a, what do they call, like a Twi'lek or something? What the dancer was?
No, I don't think so. But that's how he gets in. And Jabba's like, that won't work on me. None of this Jedi mind trick. I don't know if that's because he's actually strong, or if it's because Hutts are just naturally, because they've got such big heads, they're just too powerful to...
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's some lore to it, but if you're a giant slug monster and you are also like the mobster leader or gangster leader of this planet, like you probably are pretty smart, because you can't really move. You have to rely on other things to like move around. And...
He's physically completely a non-factor because he can't move, so like he has to be using his brains. It's the only explanation for it. So but yeah, they have this big sort of break, but it doesn't actually work. They grab Luke, they stop all this sort of resistance from happening, and they're like, you know what, we're going to kill Han and Luke by putting them into the Sarlacc pit. They're going to fly out in their little hover boats, and they're going to walk them off the plank effectively. And this is where Luke, you know, grabs his lightsaber. R2 was concealing it all along. It's his new lightsaber. It's the green one. He's made a new one because obviously the last one went, you know, down the
Missing.
down the sky at the end of Empire, which yeah.
We shall see what happens to it.
Yeah. Case in point, something they should have left alone and not touched again. But no, someone obviously found his lightsaber. Just like in
comic books, like unless you see them die, they're not gone. And then even if you do, they might not be gone.
Yeah. Which, by the way, that gets me to my next thing here, is that I always joke that Boba Fett dies like a little bitch, but he really does. Like, this is even more bitch-like than I thought from memory. Like, it's
a slapstick joke.
Yeah, not only does he fall into the Sarlacc pit and get eaten, he falls in because the blind Han Solo turns around and bumps into him practically on accident, and that's the demise of the great Boba Fett that all the Star Wars nerds love and buy models of. He's such a loser. He's pathetic.
I imagine that the Boba Fett lore has been greatly expanded on since with things that we haven't watched. Like, I watched the first season of Mandalorian and it was fine, but I didn't keep going.
I
heard Book of Boba Fett sucks, but like, I'm sure they try to retcon some of this stuff here. Like, maybe he always planned to go into the...
Hold on. I saw the first episode of Book of Boba Fett, and it opens with him cutting his way out of the Sarlacc monster.
Well, that's badass. Nobody escapes that.
But it's just fan service though. It's like, for years everyone's built up in their heads like how cool Boba Fett is, so we have to give them what they want. Like, I don't know.
That's the kind of fan service stuff I'm okay with. If they have a truly badass story they want to tell for this character that was beloved but got shortchanged for whatever reason in the films, like, that's okay with me.
That's to me just cements what he was supposed to be in the first place. Is he is this relatively minor character who has a goofy death. Like that's what he was. Yeah.
I heard he was supposed to have a much larger role in the third one, but for some reason it was something else happened. I don't know. Like, they wanted it to be more about the Emperor.
Maybe.
Or even Jabba. I'm not sure.
Maybe it was a money thing. Maybe they thought, that's all those jetpack effects. We can't spend money on those.
We've already shot as many forest scenes as we can.
Yeah, we got Death Stars to blow up. We can't do that. So, but there's some fun stuff here. There's like Han trying to hold on to Lando, who's like dangling over the edge of the boat and struggling, and has to take a shot at the Sarlacc's like a tentacle, and Lando's not comfortable with it because he's blind and he can't see anything.
I do love their back and forth a lot in this film. Actually, it really cements that they, not only that they had a previous friendship, but that they're on good terms now, despite what happened in Empire.
Yeah, because in the last movie, because we had to do the double turn, and then there wasn't as much time to see them sort of just be themselves with each other. Whereas all the times you get here, they're a bit more just sort of jovial and camaraderie with each other, or even when. Han's like, okay, you can take the Falcon, and he's like, yeah, there won't be a scratch. Well, there'll not be a scratch. Yeah, it's very. You could get a lot of the humor here, from them, which is good.
Yeah, they work really well off each other.
So, I mean, the opening stuff with Jabba is a fun little adventure in its own right, and minor nitpicks and a stupid CG singer that's been slotted in. And you get sexy Leia. Not that she wasn't always sexy. Oh yeah, the nerds love the Princess Leia in the slave outfit. Yeah. She does at least get to strangle Jabba herself with the chain. I mean, that's at least some comeuppance in the agency for her.
Yeah, and she's not like we don't have like a sexy dance scene with her either. She's just like, she's in the bikini. She's like a trophy to Jabba, and she's just playing the role until as minimum as possible, because she's she's her own woman. She's a princess after all. So I don't mind what they do with it.
Yeah, I do wonder what was the original plan, like, because did they intend for her to get captured and enslaved? It doesn't seem like that would have been part of the plan before Luke came in.
No, probably not, but they had to have at least, maybe not the enslavement part, but maybe like, oh, you'll be also like imprisoned or something with Chewie. But someone had to bring Chewie in.
They just didn't think that Jabba would be such a skeevy man who would
Or
be
maybe
like,
they
okay,
did. Maybe they did plan for it.
get out the gold shackles. Anyway, so
Leia would have found her way out of the Rancor also.
that's the first segment of the film, and it does feel very separate. And then there's a little interlude where Luke goes to see Yoda before Yoda dies. It basically says, "Hey, by the way, Darth Vader said he was my father. Carrie, shed some light on that."
Ooh, he said that, huh?
Well, he tries to ignore him.
Did he?
He turns around and he's like, "I must go to sleep." He's like, "Yoda, come on now, don't hold it on me."
I like the puppetry in it too, where he's like, "What's this now? I thought I was resting."
And luckily, there's a scene right after where the Force ghost of Obi-Wan shows up, and Luke quite rightly is like, "What the hell? You said my father was dead. Explain yourself." And of course, this is where like he's like, "Well, you know, when he became Darth Vader, your father ceased to exist. So, from a certain point of view."
That's bullshit, and you know it, Ben.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's not on Obi-Wan. This is on the writing of the first movie, where they hadn't quite decided all this stuff yet.
Yeah, that's okay. It's forgivable, I think. You know,
the
man died and the monster machine was born.
It's a bit of a stretch. I think the bigger one for me is the sister thing, because obviously that's what comes up here as Luke finds out that Leia's his sister, and that's all fine and well, but it does kind of feel like, as far as all the examples, and I think it maybe feels bigger because it wasn't in the first movie. This was the second movie where they had her kiss him to make Han jealous, and they were still playing up, oh, maybe that this could be a love triangle as opposed to, you know, something else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that does feel like a more like, oh no, you've decided this between 2 and 3 that she's going to turn out to be his sister, and we're kind of going to have to put in some lines to explain why, like, she doesn't know that and why no one seems to know that. Even Vader, it turns out, doesn't know that there's a twin sister by the end of the movie. So, because I was thinking that when it came up, I'm like, wait, does Vader know this? I'd forgotten the line later where he, like, senses it from Luke. Wait,
yeah.
Twin sister? Oh, maybe I'll just kill you then and I'll turn your sister to the dark side. Yes, very wise.
It's a very good moment. I think it is smart to make her his sister for that scene, you know, because it's always been about his friends.
It's pros and cons. I think there's moments like that it works really well, that Vader doesn't know and sort of decides what he can do with it once he does find out, and because that's like continually driving Luke to get angrier and more, you know, dark side effectively. But there's definitely some moments here where I can kind of feel the writing, like, okay, we have to like put some you know, tape over the cracks from the previous movies where we said something else, and we have to explain why that was technically still true but not really.
Maybe the first movie you can be like, oh, this could be a love triangle. I don't really sense it in the second. Like, even early on in the second movie, she only kisses Luke to make Han jealous. So like, it's not like it's not like it was ever really a love triangle.
But do you think he decided? Do you think George Lucas had decided when he wrote that kiss that they were going to turn out to be brother and sister? Do you think that was an intentional thing?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big, huge deal, but I don't think he did. It makes me think a lot of Halloween, actually, because in Halloween 2, it's like, oh, we have to like tie these characters close. Oh, they're brother and sister. There you go, done. Right, ship
that feels cheap, you know.
This has its moments where it's, I wouldn't say cheap, but it definitely has its moments of like, oh, this is a retcon, and where it feels like a retcon, and you know, it's not the worst example of one, but like, you know, I'm not just going to like hand wave everything past and say it's fine. You know, like, it's okay to critique this a little bit. It's
not. I mean, I know you and I are not going to do these films, but the things that honestly bother me now when I watch it is the stuff I learned in the prequels that don't line up, and it obviously makes me mad at the prequels, but also makes me mad at George Lucas. Like, come on, you don't know your movies.
Yeah, because
I mean, maybe you can like hand wave stuff away, because like Leia and Luke are talking, and he's like, "Do you remember your mother?" And she's like, "Oh, I remember. She was very beautiful," but really just images and stuff. Like, maybe that's the Force. I don't know, but like now we know that she died like during childbirth. Like, there would be no memories.
Yeah. You're kind of spoiling future movies there, technically, but
Yeah.
I think everyone cares. I think everyone
I mean,
cares
if
in
you
this
watch
case.
them in this order, are you really spoiling anything?
You should always watch them in the order they were, because the prequels were made as prequels, which assume that you know the main story already from the others.
Yeah. So I don't think I've spoiled anything, really, except the died at childbirth. But you know that she's dead, like before these.
Well, yeah, that's what
movies.
I'm saying, though, is
Yeah.
that's not happened yet in terms of the order you should be watching them. So technically, it's a spoiler, but I don't think anyone cares. It's not much
Sorry,
of one,
guys.
admittedly. I'm not saying this because
We're
I think
in the spoiler section.
no, for this movie, not for every movie. I'm not saying this because I think someone will be mad. I'm just pointing it out because you've got a habit of being
Hey,
careless.
we said spoilers. We didn't say spoilers specifically for Return of the Jedi.
It's implied.
Yeah. I found a loophole. I could find a lawyer to defend me.
I'm going to start sounding like Dennis Reynolds talking about the implication here, but no, there was an implication. Okay, right. Yeah, now we talked a lot in the first movie about how there was definitely little things that felt like, yeah, the prequels kind of contradict some of this, and same here as well with her talking about what she remembers of her mother, and I'm sure fans have bent over backwards to like headcanon why and to explain it, but I think that's why retcons frustrate me so much in general, is that it feels like some of the fans having to do their own retconning to explain why a mistake isn't a mistake is exactly the same sort of thing that happens in the writing in the movies when they have a retcon and they have to explain, oh, this is why it happened the way it did, even though we're telling you this happened instead, but it all has to fit together, so here's a convoluted reason as to why it all fits together. And I'm not saying all retcons are equal, and I'm not saying that all explanations of retcons are equal, right? There's degrees of good to bad and all these things.
I've seen great.
But like fundamentally, I don't love like a retcon, and I think it feels like an extension of what like fans then have to do. These are just retcons and mistakes that they've noticed in the writing while they're making the movies, so they try and fix them in advance. And then there's other ones that slip through that the fans themselves have to go, well, let's try and explain like how this could possibly be. And then things get really absurd when it's years later and they're making Disney Plus shows and they're like, okay, we're going to actually do a bunch of stories based around explaining all these things. And it's like, okay, all right, shut up, leave me alone.
I will watch Andor one day. I've heard that's good. Great, even.
Good for you. The first episode seemed fine of that. The first episode of the Obi-Wan show was torture, frankly.
Oof, I also agree. I didn't even finish that series. I watched. I think I only had one episode left, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was just like, I do not like this at all.
Yeah, because that's the one that it literally cuts to like 10-year-old Leia running around, right?
Oh, she's awful.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Fans loved her. I thought she was awful.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just better to let things be done and be finished.
You served my father in the Clone Wars, and also you rescued me. I hate it.
Okay, so the big thing in the movie though is that they want to take out this new Death Star, and it's being shielded by a big shield, but the controls and the power of this shield are this base that's on the planet that's next to the Death Star, Endor. Was that Moon?
Because the planet is like actually blocking the line of sight between the Death Star.
Is the planet Endor or is the moon Endor?
The moon, it's a moon of Endor, so maybe the planet
Endor.
is Endor. Yeah.
Okay, all right, fair enough. It doesn't really matter, but yeah. So the base is on this planet, and they're going to send in a team led by Lando and the Millennium Falcon to take out the Death Star by getting after the generator. And unlike the first movie, because it's only half finished, like they can just fly in and just blast it. They just have to get through the shield first. So Han is volunteered, and I actually really like this little scene where they're doing the briefing and everyone's talking, and Lando's joking like, "Hey, I'm surprised I didn't ask you to be this commander to lead this assault." And Han has a quippy little line, and I like that it's a surprise to Leia. when like the admiral or whoever it is says, "Hey," and the team that goes down to take out the shields is going to be led by Solo, and she sort of turns and looks at him, and I think that's a really good moment because this whole trilogy, the whole thing with him, has been that he obviously is this, you know, outlaw who doesn't want to be a part of anything,
Solo.
right?
Yeah.
Don't say that. I don't want to hear it.
Why is his name?
Second movie, you know why? You know what you're referencing.
You haven't even watched that movie.
It doesn't matter. I know that scene. The second movie, of course, like he's ready to leave the rebellion. He's trying to go away, and Leia's mad at him for it. And then the arc of that movie, you know, plays out. And then here, it's a surprise to her that he's already like taken this position and taken up, like, you know, he's got agency here. He's chosen to do something for the rebellion.
It's not just the fly around in his favorite ship. It's also he's going to do something different, and he trusts the cause enough to volunteer his ship.
Yeah, so that's growth. There's a lot of growth for Han Solo. In fact, if anything, if there's a critique about Han Solo's arc in the movie, is that it's already kind of done at this point. Like, it's actually like he's kind of had his arc for the trilogy, and it's over about halfway through this movie.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe he had to get through his, you know, he had to be rescued by a team of his friends to be able to volunteer himself even. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm not critiquing it necessarily. I'm just sort of, it's more of an observation than anything else. Is just
I like seeing him as a team player for the rest of the film.
Yeah. Well, the thing he has for the rest of the movie is being worried about Leia, and then worried that Leia's into Luke, and then finding out that they're brother and sister, and being
that's like 5 minutes.
He's like, oh, perfect.
Less than that, yeah.
Well, not to be fair though, I do actually appreciate that when they're at the Ewok like village, and Leia's just found out about the whole sibling thing, and Luke's walked off, and Han comes out, and he's like, "Hey, what's wrong? You look upset." And she's like, "I don't want to talk about it. I can't tell you about it." It's like, "Yeah, but you can tell Luke, right?" It makes sense that he gets upset and jealous in that moment because he thinks that she's sharing something with someone else. But I actually really appreciate that after like 2 seconds, he says, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he kind of calms down. Like, he realizes he's being an asshole, and he sort of you know, dials it down again. So that's growth.
It's not secrets, but you know, she can have private moments with her friends still.
Yeah, but that's also growth. It's like, you know, like we're seeing all these moments of growth from Han Solo throughout this movie, from where he was at the start of the first one. So,
and she also needs to process like everything because she just heard it too the first time.
In fact, on Luke, we didn't mention this in the first like third of the movie, but he's kind of a cocky shit. Honestly, when he gets into the Jabba's palace, he's kind of like, "Make the deal, Jabba," or, you know, "Don't underestimate my power." I'm like, that's a really cocky thing to say. So there definitely is.
I love the confidence.
Well, yeah, but I think it's them setting up that, like, yeah, like that idea that he could be led down to the path of the dark side. I think it's set up there in a subtle way where it's like, he's already acting a little bit edgelord and like,
showing up in black also.
Yeah, so. Like the speech from Yoda where you have to face Darth Vader and make the right choices to finally say you're a Jedi is like, yeah, like, because that's kind of the juncture, that's the turning point where you're either going to make the choice that leads towards light, which might be through revenge, it might be through siding with him, or light, which, you know, as we see later, is choosing not to use his rage and violence. I mean, obviously he does for a bit, but he, you know, regains himself and refuses by the end. And is trying to ultimately save Vader, but that's the big mission though. So that's what we're there to do. So they're down. They go down to the planet, like we said. They sneak in on a stolen ship. Darth Vader senses him immediately, and Luke senses him too, and looks like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have come because I think Darth Vader's like honing in on me.
Huge mistake.
It's like a homing beacon. He's like, oh, my Darth sensors are tingling, which means his Luke sensors are tingling.
Yeah.
Which does raise an interesting question. So we know that Darth Vader doesn't know about Leia being his daughter, but does that matter to the Force and him sensing someone? Like, could you argue that he should sense her because there's a connection there, even if he doesn't know about it?
See, I don't know, because Luke now, I think we sort of talked about this in the second film, but like Luke has had training now in the Force, and he's sort of
he's
unlocked something. Yes, that Leia hasn't.
Okay. He's connected to the phone line and Leia's not. So
yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm not critiquing it. I'm just pondering the question because it's just something I was thinking about while I was watching
And I think that's pretty consistent even in the prequels and the sequels and stuff too. If someone, you know, hasn't used the Force yet, then they don't know that it's there. Then I don't think others can read it. Like, you know, the scene where Kylo Ren's with Rey and stuff like that. I don't want to like delve too much into that, but like, he's not, you know, asking her if she's a Jedi or something.
Yeah. So quite quickly on the planet, they get into a speeder chase, you know, with some stormtroopers, and we get the sort of the, I guess, the explorer version of the stormtrooper outfit. You know, the biker like helmet is just like, it's kind of similar to the regular stormtrooper, but it's got more of a kind of a like a cap style thing going.
I love it. I always love costumes, so any costume and action figure variant.
Well, this is the thing, right? Is like, okay, we have to have all the things from the previous movies back, but we also want to do a whole new line of toys, just in case all the kids already have the toys from the previous movies. We have to have at least 3 or 4 new things to make sure that there's new toys to buy.
That's smart. I think it's not. I don't just mean like from a marketing perspective, but I think it's smart to have different variants of costumes for different like stations that the stormtroopers go to. You know, like there's different.
Oh yeah.
Like they have like ones that are better for, maybe they're more aerodynamic since they go on the bikes and stuff for the you know, obviously the cold ones. You know how I feel about cold weather gear for costumes. I'll never forgive Alien vs. Predator.
The Predators have natural insulation in their bodies, okay? They don't need
They do
gear.
not. They are designed like crocodiles. They, in fact, require a warm climate to even show up.
They like a warm climate. It doesn't mean that they can't survive in the cold. Why am I defending Alien vs. Predator? You've done this to me. You make me want to fight you, and now I'm defending a really shitty movie.
They shouldn't have bare bellies in the cold Arctic or wherever they are. They should have cold weather gear. It only makes sense.
All right. Well,
I want to see what that looks like.
What do you think of the speeder bike chase?
I always loved it as a kid. I think they go. I think it's completely ridiculous that they go that fast, and with all those trees around, it's like the most dangerous job ever. If you could assign that as a stormtrooper, you're sweating for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I think it is fun. You know, it's sort of a precursor to what comes after, which is the pod racing scene in episode 1. But like, and I like that scene also. But I think this is, sort of like the bare bones version of that, and it's fun enough. I think you get at least one Wilhelm scream also.
Oh, there was one earlier, but the first person who falls into the Sarlacc pit, I think.
Yeah, I want to say this movie has 2.
Yeah. I even have more. I don't know. It's a very Wilhelm scream friendly movie.
Indeed.
Yeah. But Leia gets knocked off her bike, and she ends up obviously with the Ewoks, which is sort of what starts that pivot down that path. And this is just over an hour at the movie, and this is where the pacing maybe does take a little bit of a hit, but Han and Luke and Chewie go looking for Leia when they realize she's not around, and Chewie, the big lug that he is, gets them trapped because he fancies some of this meat that's dangling on a trap and gets them all in
His one
a net.
weakness.
So this is the thing
that he's still a dog.
Towards the end of the movie, when everything's like won, and like Han like pats an Ewok on the shoulder, like, yeah, our friends have helped us win all this, and I'm like, yeah, they're helping you because they think C-3PO is a god to them. They were going to eat you earlier in the film. Like, you and Luke were going to be dinner. That was still a thing that was going to happen. Let's not forget that now, shall we?
They love their meats.
What? Why are you? You're the vegan one here. Why are you defending the meat eating?
I'm defending the cute animals.
Little shits that they
The cute
are.
little teddy bears. Why are they little shits?
Because they're little shits.
I don't understand Ewok hate. Like, they're adorable. They're like mini Chewies.
They're just. It's just they're just really cutesy, and they feel like you say they're like teddy bears, and it just feels like we're we're toning things down a little bit, I guess.
But the warthogs were okay.
They're big and mean.
I like the Care Bear Moon.
They're also, the warhogs are like, you know, very limited in terms of screen time, and there's only a few of them. Like, if we went to a village of warthogs and we had to, like, you know, hang around with them and they were pivotal to the plot, then maybe you'd have a comparison to make. Maybe I wouldn't like them as much.
If you swap them out, so if you had like Ewoks that patrol Jabba's palace, and then the warthogs are the ones that save the day at the end.
I think
Would you like that more?
I think I would like that more, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I thought they were scary as a kid, the warthogs, because they reminded me of maybe it was just all the goo on their faces, but did you watch Ernest Scared Stupid? The trolls that would grow up. Anything that reminded me of the trolls in that film made me so scared.
I definitely saw that one. It's not one of the Ernest movies that I saw a lot of, though, so I don't remember it as well. But yeah.
That one was traumatic as a kid, but I still loved it. I don't know if it holds up. I haven't seen it forever, but I'm too afraid because the trolls were so scary and gooey.
I mean, I have fond memories about 5 or 6 Ernest movies. I suspect they don't hold up that well, but maybe one day on Collector's Cut, me and David will find out.
After maybe Police Academy or something.
There's like 9 Ernest movies, so, you know, it's a hefty franchise to go through.
You have to follow it up with the Medea films.
No, never, not happening, ever, ever, ever. There was more chance of Luke succumbing to the dark side by the end of this movie than there is of me ever reviewing all of those.
There's a chance.
No, there's no chance. Not a chance in hell. So yeah, it's all just a bit of a comedy bit. It's like, you know, they're all worshipping C-3PO as some kind of god. So Luke uses his powers to make him float. So they're all scared of him, and C-3PO tells them to, you know, not eat his friends, and that kind of sets us up for later. But Luke makes a choice to go and get himself turned in because he's too big of a risk to everyone else to be with them. It means Darth Vader will be able to sense them. He's like a
honing beacon also, like, or homing, whatever it's called. You know, like, because Vader can sense him. So he's too much of a risk if he stays around his friends.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying, yeah. So he goes, and also he wants to now try and, like, win him back and, like, sort of revert him from the dark side back to the good side and see if he can do that. So that's kind of part of his intent. So yeah, he gets taken, he goes up to the Death Star with Darth Vader and meets the Emperor. And the Emperor and Darth, but especially the Emperor, are very much trying to provoke him and be like, hey, we're the ones who leaked where this station was to turn off the shield. This is all a trap, as Admiral Akbar will announce to everyone when it all starts kicking off a little bit later. But he's like, no, this is a trap. We're going to kill them all. Your friends are screwed. There's an entire platoon of, like, stormtroopers, like, in that base waiting to ambush them. It's like, this is not going to happen. So Luke starts to get angry, and it's all about trying to provoke him into anger so that he will go down the dark side. And, you know, when he does eventually snap and whips out his lightsaber, and I say whips out, like, the Emperor's got it next to him and he just sort of uses his powers to grab it. Like, Darth, like, defends the Emperor and they fight, but it's all about goading him further down this idea. I think what it does succeed at really well is that it feels like a very, very different fight to the one from the end of Empire. You know, last time it was like, okay, Luke's this more naive kid who's finally going one-on-one with Darth Vader, and he's struggling and ultimately, obviously, loses the fight. Here, it's not... Because a more traditional, like, final fight at the end of your third movie for this would be, no, this time he's going to succeed. So now he's better, he's trained, he's wiser, he's going to do it. But they actually have this extra layer to it which subverts it, which is that he doesn't actually want to beat Darth Vader in a fight. He wants to convince him not to be a villain anymore. So it adds this whole extra dimension to it that makes it feel very different. You still get to enjoy some of the, you know, the beams going and bouncing off each other and whatnot, but there's a different goal and weight to the fight, and it's Luke's trying to pull Darth Vader to the side of light, the Emperor's trying to pull Luke to the side of darkness, and all that's playing out quite well. And Luke doesn't properly lose his shit until Darth Vader realizes Leia's his sister and says, "Oh, I'll just go after her then instead of you." And
yeah, it's more of like a cat and mouse chase up until then, where like Luke will continue to hide and try to talk to his dad.
yeah,
And they're just like constantly having a back and forth.
yeah. There's a few like exchanges of lightsabers, but then Luke always backs off because he doesn't actually want to fight. Like he'll sort of retreat.
Just wants to talk.
But then when the Leia thing comes up, he gets angry and jumps in. And
yeah, I think it's not just that, but also saying like, this whole thing is a trap and designed for us to kill all of your friends and all of the rebels. Like, this is going to be the end of it.
Yeah.
So you might as well just join.
Yeah, that was first, and then the Leia's like the final thing that sets him off, because that's where he runs out and like goes nuts on Darth Vader and ultimately wins. And I think one of the nice touches of this is that when he's like hammering down his lightsaber onto Darth Vader's lightsaber and then eventually cuts off his hand, I think it's very intentional that it's like poetry, it rhymes, where Darth Vader did that to him at the end of the last movie, and that's what makes Luke snap out of it, because he realizes he's just doing what Darth Vader did before. He's becoming him, and he doesn't want to.
Not just that, but it also shines a light on the fact that he's already part machine, and how much more machine does he have to be like his dad?
That's true. The movie reminds you of his hand early, because he gets shot in his hand in the opening part, and he's putting a glove over it, and it's like this shameful thing he's hiding with his glove. So when he sees that, as Obi-Wan said, he's more machine than man now, that also makes him give pause, and he's like, "No, Emperor, I will not be a Sith. I am a Jedi." And I think when he says this, because he says it early on in the movie, he says he's a Jedi Knight to Jabba, and they kind of chuckle at it, and the truth is that it's not true yet, and that's the whole point of what Yoda was telling him. So here, when he says it, after he's chosen not to become his father, it's actually true now. He's just passed the test. He's just became a Jedi. And
he still throws in like my father before me, so like he's got like, you were a Jedi once, and maybe even happier then. Who knows?
Yeah. That's the funny thing. Talking about the prequels, like inserting other things that aren't mentioned here. I'm like, it's kind of funny how there's no mention of Qui-Gon, as he's like, "Oh, I took it upon myself to train young Anakin because he was very good with the Force." And I'm like,
well, he couldn't say like my father before me and his father before him, because there was no father.
But it's like,
midichlorian.
My master started training him, but he got killed by some demon-looking dude, so I had to then inherit the little prick. So then I trained him, and I was miserable the whole time.
Anyway, yeah, like I'm a Jedi Master, like my father before me. Like that's when he mentions his father, he's proud of his dad in the words of like when he relates it to the Jedi, not to the Sith.
Yeah.
Not to the more powerful version of him now as a Sith.
Yeah, and obviously the big ending to this fight is Darth Vader choosing to save Luke when the Emperor's using his lightning powers to kill him. He picks him up like Bane picking up Batman and throws him over the ledge. Which, notably, obviously it's a redemption in that he's saving Luke, and with his dying words, obviously after this, when he takes the mask off, he's like, he's more human again. He's not Darth Vader anymore. But I do think it's an interesting little detail here that he did do something, he did kill someone kind of in anger, so he still did something. It's like he could do this because he is of the dark side, even though he did it for good reasons. He still picked up someone and threw them over a ledge to their death, which is exactly the sort of thing that Luke was like holding back from doing the whole time he was fighting Darth Vader. So
yeah,
it's this interesting little dynamic to it where it's like, okay, he still did something of the dark side to
not
win.
Family though.
Oh sure, yes. But I just think it's an interesting little wrinkle that again just gives it a bit more depth. But he's like, yeah, tell your sister that I'm nicer than she thought I was. Please do that.
Palpatine got plenty of depth, if you know what I mean, because he was thrown down in the pit.
I got what you meant. It sounded like you were trying to make some sort of innuendo, but it's not an innuendo. I almost wish it was.
Okay, just leave it there for, people can make with it, the joke what they want. I did go see a burlesque show where Palpatine was naked. a Star Wars burlesque show. Maybe I should.
Yeah, I was like, that was a key detail that you probably should have mentioned. Yes.
The Empire Strips Back. It was very fun.
Mm. And his dong was just out when he was.
It was actually the only nudity in the show. Yeah.
Was him?
Yeah.
Oh, guess what?
It was played for comedy.
That's mildly funny, I suppose, but very good. So, it's this big dramatic ending. Darth Vader says, take off my mask, and he's like, you'll die. He's like, that's going to happen anyway, but he wants to die as Anakin. He doesn't want to die as Darth Vader, which is why it's stupid that the Force Ghost at the end is Hayden Christensen now, because he was Anakin when he died, so it should be the old man who's the Force Ghost, which made a lot more sense standing next to Obi-Wan and Yoda at the end.
You don't want to see him as like the version of him when he murdered a bunch of younglings.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not even like it's young Anakin before he started to be corrupt. It's the one right before he became Darth Vader when he was at his darkest.
It's the one where he chose the dark side. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, hey, the prequels are important and they're part of canon, and we're going to like insert as much of them as possible into these movies to force it down your throats. Bastards. Yeah. And I'm not even a big Star Wars fan. It's the principle here that pisses me off.
I'm not like a huge prequel hater. I think they were all right and stuff. And there's some things that I like in them, and obviously some things I don't like, but I hate Revenge of the Sith so much. Because I think it's the most egregious. Much like Return of the Jedi is the most egregious when it comes to the special edition add-ons, I think Revenge of the Sith is the most egregious when it comes to like getting the canon stuff right and fitting things into the movie, to the rest of the films, that it almost makes me sick. How bad of a job it does.
Tara's review of Revenge of the Sith for future references, it almost makes me sick. Very good. And obviously, while this is all going on, you've got, Han and Co. Fighting stormtroopers, and the Ewoks help them. Chewie takes over is it an AT-ST? Is the one with two legs? So. Yeah.
Yeah. The chicken walker.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go, the chicken walker, that's a better name. And yeah, it's a whole thing, and they ambush a bunch of soldiers, but they blow up the building, and that takes down the shield. Whilst all the fighters in this space are all, struggling to survive, and they keep saying we should back out, we should just retreat, and Lando keeps yelling, no, Han will get the shields down, I believe in Han. And sure enough, eventually he does, and the Death Star blows up.
I don't know, I love the shot of Han like above the building where all the stormtroopers came out and stuff, and they're like, wait, we're supposed to ambush, and we're being ambushed. I don't know why, I just love the shot with him and the blaster, like, we did it. I did it. It's just so cheeky and so confident, and he's awesome.
Yeah, I think the only downside to the way the movie functions is that it does feel like Han and Leia's stuff in the third act feels smaller than everyone else. Because Luke's obviously got the big climax, and he always should have the biggest one. But all the stuff in space with the Death Star and like getting that stuff, it feels like if you compare Han and Leia's stuff to the first two movies, it does kind of feel like Han and Leia by comparison. And maybe it's based on what I said earlier on, is that their stories are kind of already done, so they're just kind of they're part of this B plot that feeds into the other thing going on, but it's not as much of a big deal for them compared to the other characters in this third act.
Yeah, I always felt kind of sad that, Leia had this potential to also be a great Jedi, and it's teased in this movie that if she wanted to tap into that, and in my little girl brain, I'm like, yeah, she'll become a great Jedi Master, plus she's so much smarter than all of them, like she'll be the best. I like to, when I was a kid, like, imagine what that would be like, and I didn't get into any of the extended like books and legends or whatever they were, or anything like that. But obviously she even with like I think a lot of those books that came out, she just she was a leader. She wanted to be a rebel leader. She didn't want anything to do with Jedi. And I wish that this movie, if they weren't going to tap into like anything on the Jedi side of Leia and like what she could potentially unlock by the end of it, is that I wish she just had more of a reaction to the news that Vader, her like one of her biggest sworn enemies from the first two films, and everything he's done to her is actually her father. Like, she should also have a no moment of some type, but instead it's even if it is more quiet, like it almost gets brushed aside. Like, she cares more that Luke is her brother than Vader was her father.
Yeah, it also feels like maybe it'd have been nice for her to have a moment where, even if it doesn't work, that she tries to use the Force. Maybe when the chips are down before they win at the end and they're part of the story, you know, because she gets shot, right, and she's down, and you know, and it's not a big moment, but they're a little concerned for her for like a second. It'd have been nice if there was a moment when it felt like they were going to lose, where maybe she tried and possibly failed, you know, because she's never tried before, so there's no reason why it should just work. But the idea that she's willing to try and is like, oh, she's going to actually practice this, she's maybe going to do this, would have been a big deal.
I think if the movie was made now, I think it would have had some kind of a tease, like even if it's just Luke like handing her a lightsaber during the big celebration and she turns it on for the first time or something, you know, like that. I think something that implies she's going to explore this in the future.
I mean, I don't like that example because it sounds a bit like the easy fan fiction-y way of doing it, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I'm not a writer, but like, you know, just some sort of tease. I
just, you know, look, thinking about it now, just something where she's like, wait, could I use the Force here? And even if she doesn't actually succeed in doing it, the idea that, okay, this is something that's part of me now, and maybe I can use in the future.
Yeah, being able to resist something because of the Force strong will or something. I don't know.
I'm not saying that would probably be the most believable, actually, is if, like, say Darth Vader or someone tried to like mind trick her and she just tries to resist it, and she resists it more than she should be able to because she has a connection to the Force.
Well, I mean, that's literally what happens in like in episode 7 with
I don't remember that, but
other characters.
but you know, I'm saying that would feel more natural at this stage. Instead, you know, I'm not saying that in the third act she should be like picking up the entire chicken walker with her mind. Like, she's not, like, she shouldn't be doing anything crazy like that. But
a rock.
No, it took Daisy Ridley 3 movies to lift up a rock.
But Leia's a Skywalker.
So is... Oh, no, she's not. We thought she might be for a while. She's not.
Don't spoil this movie.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Anyway.
This is only spoilers for Return of the Jedi, Peter.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so anyway, that's the only thing, like, I wish Leia had a little bit more in both the reaction to the father stuff and maybe a little tease, you know, just something for the little girls watching who also want to be Jedis.
Yeah,
not that I didn't see myself in Luke, I definitely did, but you know.
Yeah, I think when I look at Return of the Jedi, I think it's a movie that I can see, I can sort of break it down into like a few different elements, and I think I really like some of them. I like the Jabba's Palace stuff early on. I really like the Luke central kind of dynamic that he has with Darth Vader and him, like, you know, ultimately choosing his right side, and then Darth Vader ultimately turning good at the end. I like all that stuff. I like the chemistry between the main cast. That's something I always liked from the first movie. It's just that the Ewoks and just what the other good characters are doing in the third act is just a little bit lower key and less exciting than anything they were doing in the first 2 movies. And I think that feels a bit smaller scale to me. And the pacing, therefore, I think it's hurt a little bit as well. But I still think it's a really solid movie overall. There's still tons of things in it I really like. I just think that it's not as completely perfect. Not that I would even say the first 2 are perfect, but in comparison to the first 2, I think there's just, you know, there's more things that I can look at and say, oh, I can see maybe the compromise there, or I can see something in the writing there that's trying to cover up a mistake from earlier, or something they've retconned, or just little things. And then the Ewoks are just annoying. So
they're adorable.
They're annoying.
They look like kitty cats. I thought you liked kitty cats.
They're not like cats. Shut up. They're not cats.
What about the one that's like when C-3PO is telling the story, which I think is a really cute and fun scene. Like, I like the language that's created for it and how he has little, you know, Darth Vader and sound effects and stuff like that, and the way they all respond is cute. And then they have a little, like a mother and holding a little baby Ewok, and the baby Ewoks are all excited, like, oh, it's so cute. Ewoks are great. They're the original porgs.
Yeah, they suck too.
I love porgs.
As soon as I saw the trailer for that movie and I saw those little shitty porgs, I was like, oh, people are going to be buying plushies of these little stupid things. They're going to be loving them.
I have multiple.
Menace to society.
Why? They're barely in the movie. It's not like the porgs save the day.
Chewie should have ate them all.
No. Chewie learned a very valuable lesson. Unfortunately, it cost him the life of a porg. It isn't porg.
Oh, dear.
But it is his one weakness, meat.
Yeah, I think the performances, obviously, a lot of the main cast are pretty consistent from before. I guess you see a lot more of the Emperor this time, so you get a lot more of him doing his evil, turn to the dark side. In fact, at one point, Luke's trying to resist the Emperor, and Darth Vader says something like, it's pointless to resist. And I went, in other words, you're saying resistance is futile.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying there, Darth.
Except, that did come later.
I mean, yeah, I know that was later, but he said that, and I went, wait a minute.
The Borg, they're just more concise,
I do enjoy the Borg. Also, one of the things early on that's really kind of like a dark little moment, technically, although it isn't because they're droids, but it is when you stop and think about it. But when the droids sort of like are taken by Jabba and they're getting like shown where they go and what the ropes are, they go through a room and there's like other droids being like branded with
it's like a
iron.
droid torture room.
Yeah.
Like one's just like hanging and stuff. Like, ugh.
And I'm like, you get away with this because they're droids, as far as the movie goes.
Dark, yeah.
But like the movies have spent, at this point, two and a bit movies have been spent telling us how much feelings they have, how C-3PO is a scaredy cat,
yeah,
and all that. So it's like, okay, very good. Yeah, like I think Return of the Jedi is very solid. I just think it is the least fully formed and well-rounded of the original three, and I think that's probably the most common opinion. I don't share the obviously I like one more than two, so I'm different in that sense. Like that doesn't fit with the zeitgeist, if you will. But I think Jedi is probably most people's least favorite, but there's still a significant portion that do think it's the best one. Like I've known people who think it's the best one, so it still has its fans, for sure.
I mean, it has really memorable set pieces. It's got a very satisfying story with Luke and with Vader. Like you get a lot of great closure in it, and it's all a celebration at the end. It's a feel-good movie. Where the other ones, they end kind of dark.
Yeah. Do you like that when Darth Vader dies, you get a little piano doing the ding, 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 ding,
I do.
Ding,
The music, I have zero complaints. Perfect. Except for the band. Except for the Jabba's Palace special edition stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's less to do with the music. And even then, like, did Williams even do that song? Like, maybe he did, but like,
I have no idea.
It's not a guarantee that he did that song just because he was doing the score, because it's kind of a different thing, It's an in-scene song that the characters are singing, so that might have been someone else. People can let us know in the comments. All right. Well, I think we're about done on Return of the Jedi. It's
we did it.
It's got the special edition things that are all some of the worst additions to the entire, 3 movies are all here.
It is. Yeah.
So that sucks. Empire's the one that gets through with the least tinkering, I think, right? Like that has obviously the first one has hand shot first,
so.
And that awful Jabba scene. This one has the singer.
It also has a lot more creatures that are CGI in the first one.
Yeah. But
yeah, when more creatures walking around,
when they go into
Mos Eisley and stuff.
Yeah, when they go into the town and where that bar is, there's a lot of CG, sort of camel looking things going around and stuff like that. Yeah, so hopefully one day we can watch it in high quality without all that shit being tacked in. Because right now, the best way you can watch the original versions of this trilogy are the Laserdisc prints, because even though they technically came out in DVD as extras eventually, it was literally just the Laserdisc prints put on a DVD, so they're non-anamorphic. They're actually the same quality as the current DVD of The Abyss, which, if you know me, you'll know I've been ranting and raving for about 20 years now, wanting a HD version of that movie.
I believe your wish is coming true, isn't it?
I mean, we've been hearing a lot soon for the last, like, 10 years at this point.
I thought I saw an article.
Yeah, I've seen
the horse's mouth.
I've seen tons of articles where James Cameron says, "Oh yeah, I'm working on it," or "It's done. I'm just waiting to put it out." Like, when is it?
He's got other water movies to worry about right now.
Yeah, but all the actors are on strike, so you can't even shoot anything. So you should get Disney to put out The Abyss.
Well, that
goddammit.
sucks too, because they're all growing up.
For most of them, though, it doesn't actually matter because they're all, they're all mocapping for CG, so you get away with it.
Well, one of them is a human, so that's growing up.
One of them is
the spider monkey one or whatever.
Yeah, but they already shot most of the 3, I think, though, so I don't think that's a problem for the next one. Hopefully there's a time jump between 3 and 4.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. But
should we rate it?
Yeah, we should rate Return of the Jedi. What are you giving it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9.5. I know it's just right there, right next to the 10, but I just think this trilogy is well loved for a great many reasons, and I feel like the hero's journey really does feel like it's completed at the end of this film with Luke and saving his father. Obviously, I would do it without the special editions. I almost don't want to hold that against the film at all, because I know the original film is out there. It was released at one point for an audience, and those are the ones that people remember fondly when they went to the theaters. So hopefully it'll ring true again. So yeah, I'm gonna keep this same spot as Empire. I still love A New Hope the most, and then these two are just slightly below. Who knows, maybe I'd give them all 10s in another year, but I love these films.
Yeah, you give 9.5 to Empire as well, for the record, so I guess that rings true with what you said right at the start, is that you like them about the same. For me, this is just an 8 out of 10. I think it's still great. I think it has some wrinkles. It has some things that aren't as good. It's an 8 out of 10. Tara's making faces at me. Like, the eyeballs are rolling all over the place right now.
Okay.
But I stand by it. I stand by it. For me,
weirdo.
Like, just deal with it, okay?
Just because of Ewoks?
No, not just because I literally just sat here for 80 plus minutes.
You praised the movie for however long.
Yes, but I also talked about pacing. I talked about not loving what Han and Leia are doing in the third act as much, and just other little retconny things that are kind of annoying. Like, what? It's a good score. It's a great movie.
All right. What are we doing next time?
Next time is your final movie. Not your final episode, because after your final movie, Tara's going to sort of do our top 50 sci-fi movies as a sort of
working on that.
a farewell episode. So that's coming up soon. But next time we had a vote for Tara's final movie. Tara picked all of the options, and she picked all absolute shit movies because that's what she likes.
What?
So coming up next time, we're doing Robot Monster.
Have you seen this?
I think I might have watched the Mystery Science Theater episode, but a lot of those movies on that show kind of
It's a really early episode, so I don't know if you have.
No, I think I did, because at one point I was watching season 1, sort of in order.
Oh, okay.
So I think I have seen this one, but I don't remember anything about it, for the record.
You get to meet Roman then.
Yeah. But of course, I will be watching the movie Vanilla, because we'll be reviewing the movie, but we'll not be watching the Mystery Science Theater version.
I actually prefer the Riff Tracks version.
Yes. But you'll be watching it Vanilla for the review, right?
Yes.
I'm not convinced by the tone of that answer.
Yeah, I'll watch a vanilla. I mean, honestly, like, I've seen the riff tracks twice in like the last month, so I can watch the vanilla.
Okay. Yes, watching the vanilla. All right. So yeah, that'll be Tara's last movie episode. Then there'll be a countdown, and then the new era of the Ace with new logo and new co-host will begin at the start of December. Depending on how the timing works out, it might be that we actually start the new era before the countdown goodbye episode with Tara happens, but that's okay. That's not a big deal. They'll just overlap slightly, but
hopefully my audience doesn't abandon Mild Fuzz movies once I leave.
Yes.
All my people, you know. Give
Yes.
David a chance is what I'm trying to say. Okay. What?
I was about to say something mean about all your fans, but I'll refrain.
Dare you? I would never say anything mean about my fans. I love you.
All right, that's the show, everyone. Now let us know what you think of Return of the Jedi in the comments. I imagine many of you are very upset at any small critique I've given it, but you can do that in the comments. Like, subscribe, all the usual things, helps out a lot. And of course, you can support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble at the various tiers. So that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.